What's up, my sneaker people? It's your boy FB Kicks in Gear, and I am back with another legit check guide featuring the Jordan 1 High X Union Los Angeles X Beffy's Beauty Supply, and we're back at it for a second video. And since I'm kind of filming these back to back, I'm not really sure where the community's thoughts are on these shoes yet, but I'll be sure to be discussing that in the Discord channel that we are now a part of, and you can find that Discord channel in the description. But yeah, I'm not really sure where the community falls on this, because initially a lot of people said they were not fucking with this shoe, and I can understand. This is super different. It's a big departure from your standard Jordan 1. But here we are about 2 weeks after release, and they have sold out on every platform, especially after the initial drop on the Union Los Angeles website. They've sold out on all of the boutiques. They sold out on Nike. I know people that didn't get them and weren't able to get them, but resale isn't too high. It's still at about $250, $260 depending on your size, which tells me that because they're not going under retail, like let's say the Jordan 2 Unions, that there is some demand for it. But the fact that it's not going for $100, $200, $300 over retail tells me that there's not a lot of demand. So for me, it feels like the market itself is saturated or is even with supply and demand, and that's why we're at. But I would not have thought that based on the vitriol that I heard in the beginning. There are people that did not fuck with these shoes, but it sounds like the people that do fuck with them got them. But what is the general consensus now that most people that did want them have them in hand? If you're gonna ask me, I think they're pretty fucking dope. I love the whole vibe that's going on. It looks kind of crazy, but it honestly doesn't. It's a neutral gray Jordan 1 with those aged, kind of earthy aspects that we like to see. And I, in my opinion, think that this makes it more versatile than just a regular white neutral gray Jordan 1. So I'm excited about them, and now we have another pair of reps. I laid down the groundwork in the previous video for the things that we could be looking for in terms of the differences, and I'm going to be going over that checklist here in this video. So hopefully this one won't be as long, but just as informative. So with that said, remember, you guys can see all of the pictures that you need of this rep, especially the details that you want to key in on the Instagram account that's popping up on the screen. It's super important to get those details. Even though on the resale market they're not going for that much, you still want to get what you're ordering, right? You still don't want to get scammed. You don't want to get bamboozled, as they say. So with that said, let's get into this video. And the first thing that we're going to start off with is the box, because that is where this checklist starts. As we mentioned in the previous video, the biggest difference in the boxes is that color and the size and the depiction of the pictures there. So you can see pretty easily, in my opinion, that color difference and the size difference in the boxes are pretty apparent, even though they are the same size shoe. And that tends to be the case with boxes and tissue paper and graphics that tend to use like photos like this. It's the same thing that can be seen on the Jordan 4 Unions with that picture of Michael Jordan's arm on the top of the box. It's the same thing. Reps struggle to get that right as well. So maybe that's something that Union has been using to as like a semi-authenticating factor. But you can see that boxes are different, colors different, pretty apparent, darker on the rep, lighter on the authentic, just like the previous video. So you know that this is still going to be a reliable indicator. When it comes to the size tag, it's going to be your typical shenanigans here. You always want to focus on the smallest text that you can. I like to focus on the made in China text or even the color code, because when something's off on something that faint, it's a lot easier to pick up, and you can compare it to other retail shoes that you might have, even if you don't have this pair. When you look at the made in China, it's a super light font, it's super small, and then when you go to the rep, that made in China is so much bolder and darker. The rep is on the top. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about. Look at where that made in China looks. Look how much bolder, even if it's subtle, look how much bolder it looks like in view when they're both in the camera. So just something to think about. Cracking open the box, it's the same deal. You're greeted with the 96 Hitman, I believe it's called Hitman or whatever the Union LA logo is called, Jordan brand. And if it's just like the other rep, you will see that the grays are different colors and the overall image is just a little bit less detailed than the authentic pair. This looks like it's been scanned or copied many times, and that translates over to the paper as well. It's the details that you want to focus on. Look how much darker and more detailed the print of this picture is on the wrapping paper, while it's faded and just not as vibrant and contrasting as the authentic one. So still a pretty good indicator. You know me, I say you got to use every tool that you have in your toolbox to be able to legit check these shoes, and the boxes are not excluded from that. Sometimes it's a lot easier to identify the box right off the bat than look at the sneaker, and I think that's the case here. And when you look at the extra laces, here you have the authentic lace. It's in this light brown, obviously recyclable, move to zero box here, and you can see the imprint and how prominent that is. But when you look at it on the rep, it's a different color and you don't see nearly as much of the imprint on here. It's obviously, this was a second thought in my opinion. It just doesn't look like they put as much effort into making these boxes, but they're an accessory. So but when you look at the laces, you can see that the authentic yellow lace is darker and the rep lace is a little bit brighter, more vibrant. So that's it when it comes to the box and the accessories. Now that we've talked about those, let's move on to the shoes. Now, when it comes to the shoes, there really isn't that much to talk about in terms of accuracy. There are a couple of things that I found on the other pair that I'm using as my benchmark to do legit checking moving forward, because most reps get the same things wrong in varying degrees, right? Because if one rep factory is struggling with it, other rep factories are going to struggle with it as well. It's just going to be about whether they decide to put more time and effort into correcting those things that they struggle with. And usually it's still a good indicator. Even if one rep might be better than the others, it's still different, and you can use that as a benchmark. So the first thing that I noticed when I was doing the other review was I paid attention to this Wings logo. And if you focus on how this is stamped and imprinted, you see all of the white parts of the Wings logo are raised. That is not new. This is what we are used to seeing on Jordan 1s. But when you look at the rep, it's the opposite. It looks like the rep factory tried to create the effect by just stamping or printing or laying down the gray. So the gray looks like it stands out more than the letters here. So when you put that side by side, you can see that difference in definition. So it looks like this one struggles the same way that the last one did. In appearance, it's probably not even noticeable. When you get up close, it's, in my opinion, a pretty great indicator. That's probably the telltale for me. That's what I'm going to start using as the first thing that I do when I do legit checking. Another thing that we like to do is obviously we like to compare the colors. When you do it side by side like this, you can see two things that kind of stand out in terms of color. One, the stitching is slightly different in color compared to the authentic pair. It's a little bit more pale and sail on the authentic pair, when on the rep it's got a little bit more warmth to it. It's got like a fleshy look to it, maybe a slight pink undertone if you look at it compared to it. And the same thing happens when you look at that outsole. The same difference in color is present on those outsoles as well. So that's something that you can hone in on. If you have an authentic pair available, it'll be pretty easy to be able to put them side by side and do that check. The next thing that I like to point out is that if you are familiar with the older releases of the Union Jordan 1 High, this stitching varies in width. In the front, it's wider, and then it gets more compact as you go along the body, and then it widens out here on the other side. When you look at the authentic pair, actually consistently one size throughout the entire shoe, no variation, no widening. This is what the original two Union Jordan 1s look like. They did have that varying gap, but instead of the teal green, it's yellow on those pairs, and they copied that exactly here. So the width of the stitching should be even throughout the entire shoe, and it's not on the reps. So another really good thing to look at. But since we're talking about stitching, I want to bring attention to the BBS on the back here, the stitched in cursive writing on the back. Well, when you look at the authentic pair, it looks like cursive, right? It's got the curves, it's got the flow, but when you look at the rep, there's just something about it that's just not captured the same way. When you look at the loop here on the B flowing into the body of the B, this just looks, it looks like they tried. Have you ever tried to like forge your parent's signature on like a report card or something like that growing up? That's what this looks like, right? This looks like trying to copy your parent's signature. And you can see that obviously super subtle, but not something that you would be able to pick up from afar. But if you are doing the due diligence, like I encourage you guys to do, there you have it. So other than that, there really isn't much to talk about, because overall the shoes are built very similarly. One thing that I can say is that the materials are identical in terms of feel, in terms of quality. This is a very nice leather. It's a white leather, white tumble leather going throughout the entire shoe. It's soft. It's a little bit stiffer than the previous two releases, but blows any GR Jordan 1 out of the water in terms of quality. This is what you want to see on a collab, and it feels good, it looks good. And the rep uses the same exact materials. It's just one thing that I do notice is that when you look at them side by side with the authentic pair being on the bottom, I can't help but get this feeling that the rep is just a bulkier version of the shoe. And that's could be because the authentic pair is laced super tight, but I still get the sense that it's bigger. And when you do that back profile, even tightening it up a little bit here, it feels like the rep is a bigger kind of, it's overall in scale, it's just slightly bigger. So that can happen with reps, and that's usually a good indicator as well. But other than that, I really can't speak to much. You got a slight difference in color when it comes to the Union LA tags. It's a little bit lighter on the rep, and it's darker on the authentic version. But the text looks identical. And believe it or not, it took them a long time to be able to match this. I remember doing early legit checking on the original Union LAs, the 1s and the 4s, and it was always easy to tell them apart because reps would either get the text entirely too bold or entirely too thin, and it was easy to spot. But now it's exact. Now they're just fumbling with the color of the tag. But hey, the more differences that we can find, the better, in my opinion. So from there, the only other standout kind of difference, and I noticed this in the other video as well, the yellow that covers the raw edges of the cut edges of the leather is darker on the rep than it is on the authentic pair. And when you put them side by side, you can see the authentic pair on the left is just a brighter yellow, and it's not as caked on as the rep is, but on the rep you can see it's more of a taxi, darker maize or taxi yellow that you see on like the yellow toes. Outside of that, I'd say they're more than identical. The tongue colors look identical, the foam color identical, the tags look identical in text and in color. We really do have a shoe that does probably 95% of the job in terms of mimicking the authentic pair, but Nike always has this touch to the shoe that makes it more finished. It makes it just a little bit more of a refined product. And maybe I'm just hyping up Nike too much. I don't want people in the comments arguing, oh well, Nike is this and Nike is that. I'm not here to have that real versus fake conversation. I'm here to have this real versus fake conversation. But more or less they're the same. I'm not going to bother with a black light test because I'm watch the last video. It's going to be exactly the same. But with all that said, guys, that's it for the second video in this series. I challenge you guys to really dig into the details and learn for yourself what you can do to spot fakes and what you can do to authenticate better. And just remember, you can find all of this, all of the pictures and images and everything like that on the Instagram page that's popping up. Please join the Discord. Let's talk about these shoes. Let's shoot the shit. Let's do the damn thing. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.